Welcome, everyone, to Ladder Daily Digest. We honor creators, and we're happy to bring in Wendi Jensen, who has a group, a community, and she has classes. And I thought I would have her come on and talk about what her projects are. And welcome to the show, Wendi.
Glad to be here. Yes, I do the Empowered Former LDS group. It's a Facebook group and support for people who have left the LDS church. And then I have online courses, and I do a live course here every Monday in St. George.
St. George, that's right. And so tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how you got to where you were 10 years ago.
Awesome. Okay. I was raised in Show Low, Arizona, small town in Arizona. And I lived probably a charmed life. I just had all the things that lined up with the perfect family in a Mormon community. My dad was a bishop when I was in my teen years. My parents were very active, and all of the kids were
pioneer
active.
heritage.
Oh, seven generations. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was a big deal in our household. And one of the epic things I remember when I was about 7 or 8, we were listening to General Conference on the radio, and that's when President Kimball announced that the Black people could have the priesthood. And I remember my mom being, oh, now I'm getting emotional. So excited about that. She was happy about that. She said, this shouldn't have ever been this way. And so my parents had a sense of justice, and they did teach me to think for myself. And even though we were deeply embedded into the indoctrination, my family did think for themselves, and when things were not in alignment, whether it was the school board or the city council or whatever, my dad was involved. And so that kind of sense of social justice was kind of part of the flavor that I grew up with.
And having something big like that sort of reaffirms to you and me at the time. I was maybe going to be 19, and the church must be true because this amazing thing happened.
Right. Instead of realizing that it should have never been that way, we're celebrating that finally the prophets have awoken.
Yeah. And so we'll refer everybody to the Gospel Topics essays about this subject now, and we'll go back to your story.
Yeah. So that was kind of just, I lived a really charmed LDS life in my family. We didn't cuss, and I wore the appropriate clothes, and we have family home evening every night. We read the scriptures in the morning. Very active, and I loved it. I loved being with my friends and in that community. I was pretty insulated still in that I didn't have any non-member friends because there were plenty of members to choose from.
Yes, and like 70% LDS around there, something like that.
Probably more like 50. It's
50, okay.
Yeah. Snowflake's probably more like 70, but
okay, that's what I heard Snowflake was.
Yeah, Shallow is quite a bit less.
More cosmopolitan.
Well, more bars and more drunkenness in Shallow.
Yeah, because you got your foresters, your other workers, your truck drivers, whatever.
Yeah, well, and it was named after the turn of a card, so the playing poker in there, they were the ruffians.
Oh yeah,
it's like what Tooele is to Salt Lake, or was anyway. So that was my life, and I loved it. My senior year or my junior year, we moved to Gilbert, Arizona, and I was kind of like a big fish in a little pond in Show Low, where I was the homecoming princess and valedictorian, and the track star and the pom girl and the dancer, the cheer dancer, and just all the things. And then I moved to Gilbert, which is a AAA school, and then got spanked and learned a lot of lessons about how you really aren't that special.
Own your place.
Yeah. And so
there's a movie that came out recently, and I don't know if I'll be able to think of it, but there's a unique singer that was on, I think, America's Got Talent, and she stars in it, Grace something. And it's sort of like that in a way, where she makes friends and things are going good, and then she somehow things turn sour, and then it discusses all the different relationships, but it has to do with high school problems that people will have sometimes with cliques and other things. And so So I want to talk for a second about your journey from, even though you were in a smallish town, there still would have been a few dozen wards. I don't know.
Yeah, we had four wards. There's more there now, but 4 wards for that
Okay, so
small
just one
town.
stake.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so did you have any thoughts about boys having their boy programs and doing Boy Scouts, and girls had something, either nothing or something different, or girls camp or whatever?
You
Did you
know,
ever
and
have?
I did, and I did think it was unfair, but not enough. I still was under the belief that just women were, we were inferior.
Less
And
than.
yeah, less than, and those things were important for us to learn, even though I love, I I love hiking, I love nature, I love adventure. I've been rappelling, I did all the things that they would have done in scouts, but no, our camps were more like spiritual camps.
And did you have
And
brothers then that went?
I did. I had 3 brothers and then 3 sisters, or 2 sisters. There's three
And
girls
so you
too.
would see your brothers do these things, and you would, there would be less opportunity for you, we'll just say.
Yeah, but I didn't notice it. I didn't
Right. It
feel it.
was
I
there
just
though.
accepted that that's the way of things.
Right. And so yeah, so then you moved to Gilbert, and does it change now? Like,
It does change because my parents' focus is on my brother and getting him on his mission and making sure he had a scholarship, and just putting so much emphasis on him, and there was no emphasis on me.
except for
And
training you to be a future Mrs. So and so.
right, I needed to find a worthy priesthood holder, and that was my goal. And I was, top 10% of my class and received a presidential scholarship, but my parents were more interested in me finding a worthy priesthood holder.
Right.
And so I did end up getting married at 18. The same year that I graduated, I got married that December.
So did you have
And
to choose to get married instead of going away to college or something?
no, I stayed at the local college there because I was there in Mesa. Um, and so I was
So you
going
were going to
to the
go local no matter what.
oh yeah, because my parents didn't have the money to support my brother and his big things, and me too.
But did
And
you
so
apply to BYU and got accepted, but you had to had to just stay home? Or do you
I
remember?
didn't have anybody supporting me and getting any kind of scholarship or help or in any way.
Right. So it was
And
just, you're
so,
just going to have to be local. That's all it was.
yeah, yeah, lucky for me. So,
Yeah.
and so that was plan B. I did want to go to the BYU and be a big dancing star, but
Mhm.
I didn't have all the training that all these other girls did. And so I settled for my little small community college and the dance team that I got on there. And then I met my future husband, and we got married that December and started having kids within the year. And so I was a very young mom. And that's when all the doctrines really started to click in my brain, because I noticed as I was nursing my sweet little baby and looking into her eyes, I felt the responsibility and the graveness of me misstepping, and how that would put her at risk and not being together again as a family in the next life. And so that's when I became a mama with my hair on fire with the gospel, and I dug my heels in and I got very rigid in my thinking, in a very unhealthy way, perfectionism and all the things, trying to cross all the boxes that seemed like the church was requiring of me.
Mhm.
And
And then as a young mother, you're also getting callings. What type of
yes,
callings?
yeah, callings. I was a young women's president when I was 25. I was um, constantly teaching in Relief Society, but the thing that I kept getting called to was gospel doctrine teacher, because I was so passionate about the gospel. And I love to teach. And one thing that I learned is that I love to have a microphone, that I have things that I want to say, and I love to express them, and I love to watch people light up when they learn new concepts. And so that's always been a part of who I am. And so I loved being able to teach gospel doctrine and get the room stirred up with inquiry, and getting people to
Discussion.
express what they were feeling.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so those were kind of the callings that I had, usually with young women in Relief Society or in gospel doctrine.
And so around 2013, you were gospel doctrine teacher, maybe?
Most likely, yeah. My marriage was not working out very well because I didn't have any skills and he didn't have any skills. And we, reading our scriptures and saying our prayers and getting to church and going to the temple more often was just not a viable solution for us.
You didn't even get a chance to go to BYU and take a family life class.
No, I did not. But I read a lot and I wanted to be a good mom and I was trying the best that I could. But my husband was just non-compliant. He was not what I thought was the right kind of priesthood holder. And I became very critical about him not showing up in our family the way that I expected him to, and the way that I was hearing the church wanted him to. And so I became very toxic with him too. And that's hard to admit. We've had many conversations about this since, but the pressure that was put on him to be the leader in our home and to also be able to provide on one income with these 5 children. And so it was really difficult for him as well. And, in retrospect, we can see where all those problems were.
Did you get any counseling? Did anybody advise you to get counseling, or just the bishop saying, try to love one another and do date night?
Yeah, we did a little bit of counseling, but it was always with a church approved counselor, and then counseling with the bishop. And that's exactly what he said. You need to try a little harder. Be
Read
a little bit more
scriptures.
righteous. Yeah, trust in the Lord and all the Lord's timing. And meanwhile, we were just not compatible. And so we're raising these 5 kids and
the primary answers to postgraduate questions, relationships.
Right. And they're not viable solutions. They're not real life solutions. And so I went into the healing arts because I had gone to a session with a rapid eye technician, which is similar to EMDR, processing trauma and childhood trauma. And when I went into her, I was telling her all my problems about I'm doing all the good things and I'm trying to be so righteous and I'm going to church and I have my food storage and I'm saying my prayers and my fasting. I'm just not getting any answers. And she looked at me, and now that I've been in the healing arts for over 20 years, I can understand where she was coming from. And she just said, I have a question for you. And I allowed this question to penetrate my psyche. And even though it was just as painful as it could be, she said, do you ever think that you're, like superior? And I was like, oh, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to know this, but I'm going to let it in. So I let it into my heart. And this is where I learned the power of questions. And that's why I've written a whole book on asking questions that are that powerful and penetrable. And when I asked that, I'm like, I don't want to hear myself say this, but I'm going to speak my truth. And I pretty much think that I'm doing the better than anybody else I know how, and that I'm showing up better than, yes, I have all this superiority going on inside of me, or at least I'm presenting this superior way because I think that's what's expected of me. And I just have tears coming down because I'm so ashamed because I don't like people who think that they're better than everybody else. And it is just
right. That's a bad person that thinks that way.
Ew, we don't like them. And then she let me know, she says that level of superiority is the deepest form of inferiority.
Wow.
And that's when I went, yeah, I never feel like I'm going to be good enough. Not good enough for God, not good enough for my teachers, not good enough for my parents, not good enough. And so I'm putting on this performance to prove that I'm good enough to all these people. In the meantime, I'm lost and I have no clue who I am. And
you haven't been nourishing yourself in a way.
I don't even know who I am because I'm being who they want me to be. And so I'm so disconnected from myself and my own soul. And she held such gorgeous space for me and was just so non-judgmental and so loving. And the things that I was learning was really starting to unlock my mind, which is what I've been trying to get through the therapy, through counseling with my husband and reading the scriptures and going to the bishop and all of these things. And I started to really feel the relief and the release in my mind that had been like so constricted. And right then after that session, I said, that is what I want to do for other people. I want to hold that space for them so that they can see themselves in non-judgment and not have that shame, and to just feel immediate love afterwards so that they actually can cross through those barriers of shame and discover who they really are without those layers. And so that's when I went into the healing arts as a rapid eye technician.
Oh, so was that around 2011 or so, or 12?
That's 2005.
Wow, 2005. So
Yes.
you worked on these things for about 7 years, about 7 years. Then you just thought
Yeah,
you
then I
could write a
started
book
to
about it.
I started to write a book about the Healing Questions Guide, and which is a book. It's 3 years of work that I did with psychosomatic healing, and basically you look up symptoms in your body and you use your body as a troubleshooting tool to understand what your beliefs and your emotions are surrounding um, certain things that you believe about yourself, and it challenges your beliefs, and it's a very powerful tool to strengthen your intuition as well. And so as I was writing this, I realized that most of the symptoms in there were aligned with contempt against the self, that most of the things that happen in the body is because the cells are getting a message of some level of contempt against the self. And as I realized that after completing this project, I asked myself, when is the first message I got that caused me to have contempt against myself? And immediately, pictures of Jesus on the cross is what I saw. And that I had, because I had been told that there was something that I had done or will do that would be the equivalent compensation for, or the redemption for, someone on a cross, just a violent, bloody death of the one of the best and most humble and of us all. And so that caused me to have contempt against myself, to think that I must have done something so vile that would be the
Yeah.
equivalent
You are
payment for it.
so bad. Somebody has to die to
Yes.
fix your problems.
Yeah. And it's not just a bullet wound or the sickness and they die. No, it's like nails in their hands and bloody thorns on their head,
That's right.
and swords in their sides. And just that whole vision caused me to think to myself, I've been told that's who I am. And so I'm in constant fear, obligation, shame. And my compassion is being exploited against me with that story, so that I develop contempt against myself. And
Right.
then
So
that's when I started challenging my church beliefs.
the organization that says you can't survive without us,
Yes.
you realized was actually causing you pain and suffering and not thriving, we'll say.
Yes. And we're taught the message, and it's very covert. And that is, without the church, you wouldn't be a good person. That the natural man is an enemy to God. And so that your beingness and the fact that you are born is an affront to God, and you're going to spend the rest of your life making up for that. So you better obey so you can return back home. And now I understand that God is the most narcissistic asshole I could imagine. That this is a very toxic narrative that we've been given, and that it puts a grip on the mind, using our deepest insecurities. And in the LDS church, it's the fear of losing your family. Because, a lot of us are, yes, we can be afraid we're going to burn in hell. But what is equivalent to that is losing my child or losing association with those that I love most.
And it's kind of funny because even like Joseph Smith is quoted as saying that if he were to go to hell, he would find a way to make it a heaven, or he'd want to be in with his friends. If his friends go to hell, he would want to go there too, or different things like that, where you get these mixed emotions, these mixed messages. I mean,
like I'd rather be in hell with my friends than, receive some celestial glory. But yet even in the temple, we're promised kings and thrones and principalities and priests and priestesses and to the Most High. And I just think to myself, I just want friends. I just want to be loved. I don't want to rule over people. I don't know who my subjects are going to be, but it just sounds just like a lot of work. I just didn't have any inclination for that. I just wanted to love people and be loved.
Yeah. So that was the culmination of your book, sort of, once you had done everything.
Yes. So and then I was studying the mind too. And that's when I started to see some things in the FLDS community that were going on that I could understand. They're being controlled by occults.
Yeah. All the news, the Warren Jeffs capture, and the women talking about how they're being separated from their.
Yes. And you can see on the news, like the vacancy in their eyes, and their language was limited. And they had no emotion about the fact that their kids had been confiscated from the group to assess whether where their living conditions were safe or not. And they were just expressing no emotions. And I'm like, this is programming. They're like automatons. They're just like robotic, and there's no emotion coming out of any of it. And that's when I started studying cult dynamics. And the more I read about that, the more I realized, oh, well, dang it, I've been raised in a cult too.
Yeah. And I say to people, Jonestown happened when you were a little girl, and I was, we'll say, I guess, an older teenager or young man or something. And that was, something that was everybody obviously afterwards. Yeah. If they're going to kill all themselves, obviously they were in a cult. Now, family members of people who had been indoctrinated and been, their communication blocked and stuff, they knew that what was going on wasn't good.
Yes.
Right? Everybody else thought, well, they're preaching Christ. They're trying to live off the land in Guyana. They're trying to do all these things. They're trying to do things, in God's glory. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with their beliefs, right? But it was only the family members that were saying things, and then the family members got the ear of a congressman, and he went out there and tried to see what was going on. And it seems almost like he was pretty well didn't see anything horrible, but something happened, and they decided that they needed to kill this guy to prevent the bad news from getting out. And then once he died, they decided the only other choice was to kill all of themselves. And things can go wrong so fast when you live in, or you're associated with some group where you have to strict obedience, right? When your thoughts and behaviors and emotions and mind and information is being controlled.
Yes, and obedience in the LDS Church, obedience is the first law in heaven.
Right.
And so, why is it not love?
And the same thing, I recently saw the thing about David Koresh and Waco. Mm-hmm. And there were a bunch of good people trying to do some good things, but they had guns and they had kind of a crazy guy as their leader. And somebody said, all religions have a kernel of something that's good, because you need to have cheese on a mousetrap to get, or a rat trap to get a rat, to capture your prey, we'll say,
Well, those are some of the components, is you have to threaten them with the thing that's most important to them, and convince them that this is the way and it's the only way and it's going to keep you safe, and your obedience and your belief is what's going to keep you safe. But it also has an infallible leader, and it also tells you that the outside world is threatening.
Right. And you're broken and we can fix you.
Yeah.
We're
and
the only source
through us. Yes.
The only way you can get fixed. And so you wrote the book, and now what happens in, around COVID time or anything else? When did you start your Facebook group?
Is when I started my Facebook group, because I had been trained in how to do the emotional processing and processing trauma. And that was my whole practice. And it was, 98% LDS women who were starving for spiritual teaching. And so I had a big practice I had grown in the 10 years prior. And then it was a difficult time for me to tell them that I no longer believe, because it's never been my intention to cause somebody to lose their faith.
Right.
And so I tried to teeter back and forth and not let them know kind of what I was doing, but I could no longer live out of integrity. And so I decided to let all my clients know that I'm no longer believing, and they never came back again.
Because you saw what you were doing as a way to help people in Mormonism be better Mormons.
And to release and process the emotions and the beliefs. But it took me 10 years to even figure out those beliefs are established based on the doctrines.
Yeah.
And so it took me a while to understand that. So after I told everybody, I no longer believe, I'm not a temple recommend holding person anymore, they did all leave. And so it was hard for me to watch the business that I had grown, that I loved, just completely collapse. I've since, just even this week, had people come to me and say, I'm so sorry for the judgment I had.
Yeah, you were right all along.
Yeah,
It
because
feels
they
good now,
can now see it.
but it really hurt 9
Yeah,
years ago.
but I knew it was the right way, and that's the hard thing about when you leave the church. You do so much studying. At least I did. I had to make sure that all my T's were crossed and all my I's were dotted, because you have so much to lose. If you're wrong,
Eternity.
you're gonna lose everything. Eternity,
Right.
yes.
Yeah,
So
that was one of the things that made me kind of wonder about things. So I'm going to be on Earth about 78 years, and I've been waiting about 13 billion years, according to the age of the universe. And then I'm going to do something for the next 13 billion years that I have no idea what it is, but the streets are being paved with gold, and I'm going to be with my family, of which
yes.
maybe not all of them I really like anyway. We're starting to get to be kind of when you dig deep.
Well, everything that we're promised, they want all of our resources, our time, talents, and everything wherewith the Lord has given us. They want us to give it to the church and to the kingdom, and to get our focus and our attention, which are our most precious resources, our focus and our attention, our mind and our soul, to the church. And what we're promised is something that we can't prove. You get a special place in heaven. You'll be
Right. And
together
if you
again
think
in the
about it,
family. And there's no proof of that. None of it is viable. None of it is tangible. It's all this pie in the sky stuff.
yeah, except for following rules, like when you're on a mission and working hard, and then following rules while you're in the church leadership positions, you're really not training yourself as a human being to be a god. If that's
And
the
you
whole
train
goal.
yourself to be a robot.
You train yourself to be a robot, to be a peasant around the manor.
Mm-hmm.
And so, with the bishop being the lord of the manor in a way. And so, yeah, that's a difficult thing. And so, when did you start the new things that you're doing now?
Well, because I saw how difficult it was for me when I had it was, like I said, a slow burn out, and finally had the collapse where I said, I know this is not true, and it's not what I'm supposed to be doing. And the emotional turmoil that I went through, a little bit of a depression, confusion. Even when I had a pretty versed skill set, I realized how many people are leaving that do not have the skill set that I have. And they spin around in circles of this trauma, not knowing how to navigate it. And so I said, this is where I want to put my effort, and my focus is at helping them to claim their spiritual sovereignty, to reestablish their identity in a way that feels authentic to them, and to help them access those dreams and be in a forward motion in having them manifest in their world, to help them heal connections and relationships that are severed when we do leave, and to just empower people.
How long ago did you start the Facebook page, Empowered Former LDS?
Well, it started out as a Thrive group, Thriving Beyond Religion, but John DeLynn is kind of the big guy in that space, and he took that name, and I didn't want to be associated with that because it wasn't the same thing. It was, that became his him and Clint Martin's deal, and they're doing a great job with it. So I renamed it like 3 or 4
Right.
years later.
Let them have the brand.
Yeah, I just let them have the bread and swallow
You
it
could
up.
just rebrand and everybody would be okay with it.
Yeah. So my group is called the Empowered Former LDS, and it's focused on healing and moving forward. And it is a great group of people. I don't have to do much monitoring in there because they really appreciate that, we're not in angry phase. Well, some of them are in angry phases, that this is not where we vent, but we get to express what's going on for us. And so many supportive people that are, some of them are therapists, some of them are healers, but it's a really great place to come and get support in moving forward, and not ruminating and recycling in that wounded place that we can get trapped in. So I guess you could say my effort is towards relieving the epidemic of angry apostates.
Yeah. So I do get occasionally angry, and
As you
I'm
should.
trying to channel that energy into, you know, spreading information. Some people think I post on Facebook anti-Mormon things.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I might post that some missionaries got killed, or that the church had to pay a $5 million fine to the SEC or something. But I tell them it's just science, history, and current events. It's not nothing. There's nothing anti about it. And I wouldn't have to post it if the church would tell you all these things at the same time, just as they're telling you that they helped with, clean up after some hurricane. If they also told you some bad things that happened as well, then you would have full disclosure. And if they told you everything about their history and all the problems that came about because of, Joseph Smith's dealings or Brigham Young's dealings, if they would tell you that, you would have informed consent, and you'd be able to fully participate, knowing, what you're in for. But when they hide those things, you have neither of those things. And so I am not anti, but I'm, trying to help you see that there's more news. There's more than just what you're being given.
You're pro disclosure.
Yeah. Just think if you only listen to Honda tell you what great cars their cars are.
And tell you that all the other cars are bad and evil, that they're going to break down any minute. And the only way you're going to be able to get anywhere is if you drive a Honda.
Now I wish I had said Yugo, but I don't think the younger audience would know what I'm talking about. But in the 90s, I think there was a company called Yugo from Yugoslavia, and they built some cars, and they were cheap, and everybody started buying them. And then they started falling apart on the roads. And so maybe they didn't have full disclosure about the ability for their cars to remain intact.
Well, I think, and that's such an important part in controlling the information, which is one of the 4 that you mentioned and that are in mind control. And that is controlling emotions, your beliefs, information. And what was the other one?
Behavior, thoughts, right?
Thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and information. Right. And that's basically what the church does, is they curate the information so that in your books and in your curriculum, you only get what the church education system has deemed faithful, faith promoting. And then it's so insulated. And in this space, we're supposed to trust our intuition. And a lot of people, when they leave, they're like, I can't trust my intuition. My intuition's the thing that told me to stay in. And I'm like, nope, your intuition is what caused you to leave. Because at the time that you made the choice to make your covenants with the church, you did not have all the information. And when you did get the information, you chose to risk losing family relationships, losing relationships in your community, losing your validity and relevance in your entire life and your identity. You were willing to risk all that in order to stop betraying yourself. And so that voice that causes you not to betray yourself, that's the voice you should listen to. But you weren't given all the information.
The church tells you you're not in a cult, and they tell you that you're free to read anything you want, but maybe you should only read the things that are church approved.
Right.
So you get these mixed messages, and it reinforces for the people who want to be reinforced into the system. And then a few people choose not to, and they stop attending, and we don't see them at church anymore, and we wonder what happened to them. And they might be gone forever from our view, because we would certainly wouldn't want to go ask them what happened, because
we don't want to find out.
Tainted. Right? They have a disease, and we don't want to be infected with that disease. But now we know that their disease was that they were thinking for themselves, and they were regaining their sovereignty over themselves. Yes. And so you also have weekly meetings.
I do. It's called the Dragonfly Transition meetings that I do here locally in St. George, and we do them on Monday night in place of your family home evening. And it's specifically for people who are leaving, not to cause people to deconstruct while they're in the religion. That's never been my intention. But because it is such a hard space to navigate, being raised in a cult and living in that situation and under the influence of mind control for so long, man, when you deconstruct, it can be really heavy. It impacts your identity. It impacts, your future. You're not quite sure how to go about living your future without being told how it should be and how it should look.
Yeah,
It
your
affects,
livelihood. If you're
your livelihood.
if you have a self-help group,
Yeah, or
if you're a realtor,
or an insurance salesman, or a
salesman,
dentist,
right?
and all your clientele are LDS, and they found out that you've lost your testimony, and they'll all run.
Yeah.
And so there's just a lot of complex things that go on when you leave, and a lot of trauma behind all that. So we talk about those on Monday nights and allow people
And
to
about
tell
how
their
long are
story.
they?
And it's an hour and a half
Hour and a half.
on Monday nights.
And so you start out with a prayer. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but we do meditations.
Okay.
If I'm feeling like it, we do like breathe together and do a meditation, because my new definition of spirituality, that I was just craving more and more spirituality in the church and didn't even understand what the word meant. And that is discovering more of your authentic self, and just becoming a psychonaut of your own psychology, and really exploring why you do the things that you do, what it is you want to create, and understand what's stopping you from creating it. To me, is spirituality, because you are connecting with that highest self and your most, what I call your favorite self.
There you go.
Instead of your best self, I call it your favorite self. Who's your favorite self? Be that person.
I would pray, and for 50 years, I thought that God was giving me answers, and over the last dozen years, I've just discovered that it was just me all along giving myself answers.
Right.
And
yeah.
so
It's all
anyhow,
and you are the devil, and you are the good one, and you are the bad one, and you're the messy one. It's all this
everything.
big circus in your own mind. And when you sift through it, that to me is spirituality, because you can identify those voices.
Disney movies are scripture. I said it like 20 years ago, because they make me feel good and I learned something. It's just like going to Sunday school class, right? But recently there's the In and Out movies, right? Inside Out.
Yes.
Where they talk about how the
emotions
you have are there to protect you. They're there to help you. So anger is something that can protect you. Have you seen it? Is
your greatest protector. Yes. Because it sees what's unjust. It gets angry at things that are happening to you that aren't fair, that aren't good, that aren't kind.
Right. So I remember as a kid being told, boys don't cry. If you chance to meet a frown, do not let it stay. Quickly turn it upside down and smile that frown away. And those were basically, sounds good, but very unhealthy ways to try to figure out who you are and what you should be, and
how you feel,
and to trust yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Trust your feelings, right?
Or at least let them know how they're informing you. Because our feelings were used to manipulate us too. In Moroni 10:4, when it said, seek after these things. And then you have this suggestology that you're going to have this epic moment. And so whenever you have this emotional feeling about whether or not the Book of Mormon is true, that's when it starts said, well, if the Book of Mormon's true, Joseph Smith is true. And it just kind of locks like a Tetris piece into your brain. And therefore it must all be true.
And contention is of the devil.
Emotion.
So if anybody ever starts to tell you it might not be true, then that's Satan saying something. Well, thanks, Wendi, for joining us today.
Yes.
It's great to get to know you. I hope that we can collaborate somewhere in the future and do some things. There's a whole wide world open to me now. I tell people, I want to live now. I want to experience life.
That's right. Well, and I think that the one thing that the very one thing that helps a person in moving forward, and that is when the life that they're creating is far more interesting and exciting than trying to make the church wrong for what's happened to you.
That's right. So anyway, everyone, if you enjoy our content, like and subscribe. I think I'm at like 950 subscribers. And so supposedly 1,000 is a magic number. So if you can share this with other people that could use some of Wendi's words for improvement or consoling or whatever.
Empowerment is my hope.
Empowerment.
Let's get you empowered. Take back your power.
Yeah. And so there's lots more to learn about the issues. I tell people, I really don't often want people to learn anything from my show, but I want to point them in the direction that they can learn things. So I'll point people in Wendi's direction, and you can learn a bunch of stuff from Wendi. And is your book still for sale?
Oh yes, the Healing Questions Guide. If you're wanting to understand some of the beliefs and the emotions that are hidden behind things that are manifesting in the body, it's gone global.
Did you get a publisher or self-publish?
I self-published, and it goes by word of mouth. All my marketing has only been by word of mouth, and I'm just selling copy after copy because it's.
Is it on Amazon or just a special
Amazon?
Amazon.
Amazon.
And do they do the thing where they get an order and then they print it now once you give them the file?
Print on demand.
Yeah. So that's way better than it was 10 years ago, I bet.
Right. Yes, I agree.
All right. So we'll provide a link to the book and a link to the other things that we possibly can. And everybody else, have a good rest of the week.
Bye. Thank you.